Hi everyone, welcome back to Demand Decoded. Dan here as usual, and we have Josh back on the podcast, which is amazing. After a couple of fantastic episodes, he's joining us again, and this time we're talking about attribution and how we go about attribution without the politics in marketing and attribution wars between marketing and sales. It's kind of been an issue forever in marketing and in sales. How do you attribute? How do you compensate? How do you actually align these two core functions of the business and give them the credit they deserve and also serve the business in the best way at the same time? And yeah, hopefully in this episode, we're going to share some insights on how to align those two teams and how to attribute in the best way possible. So, Josh, great to have you back here. And yeah, it's an interesting topic.
I'm thrilled to be back. This is our first time doing this when we're not in the same room, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah, back here in Atlanta, and this is a topic that's been, since the dawn of marketing, right? People have been struggling to have their marketing and sales teams on the same page, singing from the same hymn book or whatever analogy you want to use. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. Let's dig in.
Before we get into the episode today, here's a quick word from our sponsors, HubSpot. You don't become the world's most valuable women's sports franchise by accident. Angel Cities Football Club did it with a little help from HubSpot. When they started, data was housed across multiple systems. HubSpot unified their website, email marketing, and fan experience all in one platform. This allowed their small team of just 3 to build an entire website in just 3 days. The result? Nearly 350 new signups a week and 300% database growth in just 2 years. Visit HubSpot.com to hear how HubSpot can help you grow better. Well, I think to frame us off, we should just cover why this is such a big issue. Why it's always been such a big issue, but why it's still an issue. You'd think with all the technology available, all of the systems we now have in place for marketing and sales, surely the attribution problem should be put to bed. But actually, it's probably more prevalent than ever. It's a bigger issue than ever. And really just companies are struggling to solve this challenge. And I think we've both had experience and witnessed issues firsthand, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think of it as maybe 3 different key drivers of this dilemma. One is human beings generally want to be measured for their contributions based on what they can control. It doesn't feel real good to be able to be told, we're going to measure you this way, and that way, you don't have complete control over what happens, right? And so that's part of it. And for marketers, that often, not always, but often ends at the handoff to sales. And so it's very easy, very intuitive to say, well, I should only be measured on that part.
Yeah.
Sales, from a sales perspective, though, if you put your shoes on, your salesperson's shoes on for a minute and walk in their shoes, they never have complete control over their outcomes, right? They have competitors, they have internal politics at their customer, they have all these they have to rely on product effectiveness, product market fit. They have to all these things that impact their ability to be successful, and they still get measured on that success one way or the other, right? There's no excuses in sales. And so I think those dilemmas, or the nature of those, those functions, when not proactively managed and designed, it's sort of natural that these things come up. I think the second reason they come up, and it's something you brought up while we were prepping for this, is that very often they end up in different systems. Marketing's working in one system and sales is working in another. I mean, and I think you've seen that with some of our customers, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's it's such a big issue that you just wouldn't expect, right? Sales are operating out of the core CRM that might be attached to service as well, like serving a customer afterwards.
Right.
Marketing have absolutely no visibility into the pipeline, into closed won revenue. And this just in itself causes measurement gaps. Marketing then have to measure something to prove their worth in the business. But this can't physically be pipeline or revenue because they don't even have visibility of it.
That blows my mind. I mean, especially when platforms like HubSpot do exist that do a great job of being able to bring people together and bring those two sides of the house together. Um, I know, the other guys would say that they can do that too. Um, they can, but it's a whole lot harder to manage in their environment. And so, like within HubSpot, like as a HubSpot agency, I just expect that sales and marketing are
Yeah.
seeing from working in the same environment. But you're right. I mean, we run into customers all the time that are still using HubSpot for marketing and Salesforce for sales. And while they can be integrated, it's never as smooth as if everybody's working from the same platform.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing that happens, Dan, is um, over the last 25 years of B2B growth that I've been leading, the buyer journey and the degree to which we get to play a role in the buyer journey at different places has changed dramatically, right? And the frequency of that change and the pace of change, I think, also contributes to this, because there are companies, lots of companies, that just don't stay up to date on that. And so they're using old models, and so that and as a result, their growth volumes, which might have been great for a while, start to decline or plateau, and they don't know why. And as soon as they don't know why, but the people above them are pointing down at everybody, then fingers pointing across can easily happen. And so I think it again is incumbent upon executive leadership, senior leadership, to really push their teams to have shared goals, shared compensation, share and a shared ownership of um, the state of the art, how B2B growth continues to evolve, and how they need to be behaving now compared to even 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. Do you think there is some sort of historical, cultural us versus them mindset which causes this disconnect between marketing and sales?
I mean, certainly in some places, like, yes, I would tell professionals in both sides that it's in their best interest to spend a year working on the other side. Like if you've never carried a bag, if you're a marketer and you've never carried a bag, you're not going to understand the pressure that
Mm.
an individual salesperson goes through in their day to day. It's sorry, you're not. You
It's
can
funny.
say it, but you just haven't lived it.
Yeah.
Um, the and the same is true on the other side. If the average salesperson understood the complexity of marketing and the complexity of the demands, the volume of demands, with generally the lack of budget to meet all those demands that most organizations have to deal with, and the lack of information that marketers have in oftentimes gaps from, sometimes marketing is this isn't certainly the best practice, but but sometimes marketing is the last one in the door, right? Like last one invited into the meeting, and that's crazy, but sometimes that's the case. And so, like, I do think, yeah, that it would be amazing for people to switch seats for a year, as ways to build stronger growth teams.
Yeah. You know what? There's a lack of empathy on both sides. And
Right.
I worked with a really great marketer who was a salesperson before, and he kind of like drilled into me the thought process of a salesperson when it gets to the end of the month, when it gets to the end of the quarter. Like okay, we might be sending them these 100 leads we captured at an event or from a webinar. They don't care. They care about hitting their target to get their compensation so they can pay their bills, like go on holiday, like do the things they need to do and have security in their job. Whereas like marketing, to be fair, and I say this as a marketer, right, who doesn't have that target on my back at the end of every month, at the end of every quarter, like we don't come under that same level of scrutiny that we need to succeed in order to, have a livelihood, right?
Yeah, that's a great example of, when let's say the company is managed by quarter, because most of our B2B clients aren't month to month, they're quarter to quarter. In that environment, the last week and a half of that quarter, that sales team is full on focused on closing, right? And so if marketing plans a webinar and in that period and then generates a bunch of leads, and we know, right, we know that leads need to be followed up on in minutes, right? Not
Yeah.
not days, weeks, or months. And the value of those leads decrements rapidly over very short windows. Well, we're not doing ourselves any favor if we plan that in the middle of crunch time for the sales team. And so, yeah, but that's, again, that's where sales and marketing leadership need to be working together to plan their calendars and plan where they're going to invest what resources and what their shared outcomes are trying to be, right? I mean, the other, like, how many times have you heard a sales or a marketing team say, well, we generated MQLs, and the sales team say, we haven't seen any SQLs, and there be this, giant river of gap between what marketing thinks should be good enough and what sales is saying, hey, no, I want the table set better before I engage because it's not worth my time. And that is executive leadership. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. We could do that at another podcast. Like, how do you define those things in a way to drive effectiveness of both teams? But
Yeah.
but let's get back to attribution. So yes, so we have these dilemmas, and everybody wants to use money well. Marketing doesn't want to lose their budget. They want to be able to assess what is effectively turning, what is most cost effectively creating the most pipeline. In the best of worlds, that's what marketing's goal is, right? They don't have any other agendas. They're just trying to do what's best for the business, which is grow as much pipeline as possible, qualified pipeline, ICP pipeline, in through means that we can identify, understand, and replicate, right?
Yeah.
That's what attribution's for. So, people go through, and there's been all kinds of models, right? There was First Touch, which claims, top of funnel success, woo, and it didn't matter what happened at the bottom. There's Last Touch, which completely ignores everything that happened above that, which sometimes sales loves because they may be the last touch. but and then there's hybrid models, U-shaped models, W-shaped models, like all these different models that we've tried to, but the truth of it is not a single one of them truly emulates the buyer's journey.
Yep.
Right. And why is that?
I mean, technology can only do so much, right? Our ability to view a buyer's journey at every single stage is inhibited by the technology that's available to us. Buyers are complex creatures, and there's this Gartner guide, and we can put it on screen now, and it's like the B2B buyer journey, and it's a few years old now, but I absolutely love it because it has lines connecting all over the place. It's just an absolute mess and spaghetti mess. But somehow our attribution models, our technology is meant to identify all of those sources all of those signals of information, and it's just totally impossible. Some of the most crucial things that happen in a buyer journey might be a conversation around the coffee machine in the office about your product. It might be a conversation down the pub with, you know, an ex-colleague who is using your product. It might be in a Slack community that you have no access to. It might be in a WhatsApp group. Like, there are so many actions that take place outside of any technology visibility whatsoever. So in terms of whether you use first touch, last touch, multi-touch, I don't really care. Like, they all have their own issues, and the true thing that matters is the goal at the end, and not the attribution that is assigning credit along the way. Like, I do have ideas that we can get into that we apply, and how to try and attribute in the best way possible, but technology just has fundamental issues. And if you think you're going to implement, you know, an attribution model, you know, let's introduce multi-touch and it will solve all of your problems and tell you where to invest in the best way possible, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen.
Right. No, I'm 100% with you. I think it's fun to talk about what we do here at Blend too. So what do we use at Blend?
Yeah, so we are big advocates of self-reported attribution in our attribution modeling, taking a hybrid approach. So self-reported attribution, I've spoken about loads on this podcast, right? So it's basically asking the buyer, how did you hear about us? And the great thing about that, there's downsides as well, which I'll talk about.
There absolutely are.
But the great thing about using self-reported attribution is highlighting the dark places where buyers are having conversations, they're hearing about your brand for the first time, probably the most significant you know, recall of your brand, and telling you what that is. If you look at your software attribution compared to your self-reported attribution, there will often be a huge disconnect there, right? If HubSpot or another software is telling you that the buyer came to you from organic search or a referral, they might actually say in self-reported attribution, oh, I heard about you from Gary in, you know, in this company, and he just told me to get in touch with you, basically. So actually, your marketing there did nothing.
Right.
It might.
On the other hand, it's self-reported attribution is what gives us the ROI for this podcast, because
It does.
we otherwise, any other attribution model prohibits us from being able to use this, being able to prove there's a value to this podcast other than just in the inherent value of us being out there chatting, right? Like, for the, you know, 6 people that listen. I'm just kidding. The only one I'm on. So but when we do that, we start to see that people say regularly, oh, I heard about you on your podcast, and I'm coming to you now because I want to talk to you about my challenges. I've heard a number of different marketers out there tell customers, oh, you shouldn't do podcasts because, you know, now they're a lot of work and you have to stay up on it. You have to, you know, we spend a lot of effort on it. But I think it's one of our best performing go-to-market strategies and pipeline generation strategies. And yet the reason people are saying that they shouldn't do it is because they have no way to measure it. Well, self-reported attribution is one way to measure it. It's not the only way, but it's one way. I think there's also, as we approach the world of AI, and you know, we're spending more time in LLMs and getting comfortable with letting the LLM consume massive amounts of data. If we have access to, you know, if we're collecting every touch point from marketing for a customer or a prospect, and every touch point from sales, and every page view that they come and visit, and we're collecting all this information in our systems, ideally in HubSpot, but people do lots of different things. If we do all of that, we can take all of that data unstructured and push it into LLMs and let the LLM detect, over the course of, let's call it 1,000 won and lost deals, right? At 1,000 contacts, 10,000 contacts, whatever the right number is to get for it to be able to have statistical relevance. It will go and it will find patterns that we would never find. And now, to the extent that anything, that any buyer's journey is well understood, that's going to give us a much better sense of what's happening when deals go to the finish line and what's happening when they don't. And I'm super excited about being able to do that for some of our customers in the near future, because to me, we've just been like, all of these attribution models have been trying but failing to really understand the buyer journey.
This podcast is brought to you by Blend. We're a B2B website and demand generation agency. We work with ambitious businesses just like yours to create and execute effective demand generation strategies that drive pipeline for your business. We also recognize that your website is the most important asset you have in marketing. So we specialize in building scalable websites on HubSpot that convert the demand that you've created. If you want to find out more about our services and see real results that we've generated for businesses, visit blendb2b.com. So yeah, funnily enough, Josh, I actually connected Claude with HubSpot the other day. I was doing like a few tests because obviously HubSpot now has an integration with ChatGPT and Claude. Kept it on read-only mode for now because, I didn't feel comfortable pushing lots of data back into HubSpot based on responses I got. And Claude is read-only for now. Anyway, by the way, ChatGPT can work bi-directionally, but Claude is just read-only. And yeah, I mean, even the level of analysis I was able to do just on some of our like self-reported attribution modeling was really interesting. It's kind of early stages in the testing, but it's already given me a really great understanding of what's possible from these large language models with that amount of data, being able to structure it in a way that is easily digestible, and the amount of context you can give to the prompt to receive something back is absolutely incredible. One other thing that I was thinking of as you were talking then was the ability to measure signals and action. And when we talk about attribution, a lot of the time we're thinking channel first. So we're thinking, oh, well, how do we measure, our ROI from LinkedIn? How do we measure the ROI from the podcast?
Right.
But actually we forget, how do we measure the ROI from intent data? How do we measure the ROI from outbound signals that occur? And there's really interesting ways to go about this as well, pulling all of that data into your CRM, and like you say, using AI to detect when this signal occurred, we took an action, like sales took an action off that, and the conversion rate into pipeline and close one based off of that action was this. It could be website inquiry comes in, it could be Zoom Info detects a new account has received funding in your ICP, so you go outbound to them. It could be that you met somebody at an event. There's all of these other signals that are almost like a layer up of the kind of buyer journey that you then also need to track and understand which ones are most effective for you. That covers your entire go-to-market model, not just marketing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's really my vision, is that we have an ability to aggregate all that data without feeling the need to structure it or define it in any way, because we won't do as near as good of a job as AI will in doing that. And I mean, as long as you have enough data, enough touch points, you've got, like, I'm not sure this works for the $5 to $10 million company, but if you're in a company that's doing 25 million in revenue and above, you absolutely have enough. You should, I mean, you better have enough touch points, enough data
Yeah.
elements across everything that you do, that you can, and this works, this should work on both sides of the house too, right? Like, we should be able to also turn this to existing account growth and be able to analyze everything that happens with that account. And there are, frankly, the systems that are in place today um, do a better job of that inherently, in detecting patterns, because it is a bit more structured. But, if you build intent, if you if you have intent signals and you bring those intent signals in, you can even do that against your existing customer base and start to detect, hey, my existing customers are somebody in my existing customer is starting to search for what I do, and that might be concerning to me. Right?
Yeah.
Even though my service team says, oh, they're happy as a clam, uh, all of a sudden you start getting signals that are suggesting that maybe they're starting to look other places, or maybe it's a different part of the company that's looking for something, and you can identify opportunities for same account growth by expanding your footprint. Um, all of that's possible now with the use of AI. And so, yeah, so I think in the next, I don't know, 6 to 12 months, we will have a set of tools that are, fully capable of being deployed like that. And I think there's probably a lot of other people who are working on the same sorts of things for their businesses. Um, it's an exciting time. It doesn't, however, like, if we think about all that, uh, as that reporting, let's say it does do it, first of all, to your point earlier, it doesn't completely model the buyer journey. There's a big chunk of the buyer journey that's still going to be invisible, because they won't have touched us, right? The, and and so we still have to figure out brand matters, uh, being out in the marketplace, generative uh, engine optimization is still a thing, still is going to be a thing, is going to be an increasing thing, all because we want to be able to influence ahead of when we first recognize the prospect. But the other thing that doesn't solve, even if we get to um, a complete view of, or as complete as possible view of, that buyer journey, and where we're seeing success and where things are falling off, it doesn't change the fact that marketing and sales may have different uh, measurement criteria and comp structures. And I think that if there's anything that executive management needs to do while their teams are sorting out all this and trying to build these systems and create better visibility, what executive management should be doing is sitting down the head of marketing, the head of sales, and bring them together, if they aren't already reporting to the same person anyway, and creating uh, shared success, of you of you know a measurement rubric and compensation scheme that's based on shared success. Um, if we don't do that, we're going to continue to even if we have more data, we're going to be continuing to foster these challenges.
Yeah, and just to be clear, and ask the question, do you see that, and have you seen that in the past as basically a shared revenue goal between both teams?
Yes, um, depending on the type of business. So, like, for example, um, in a B2B software or tech-enabled services business that's got an average ACV of $500,000, yes, absolutely. In fact, I've led teams where we've created a revenue component, or a win rate component, or uh, some degree of sales success as part of what marketing is measured by. It did. I got lots of flack on a regular basis because they didn't have complete control. But my point was, look, that's kind of the point. Is we all succeed together.
Yeah.
And we can't have a part of our organization claiming success if another part is failing, and if the business is failing. I can't, you can't just sit over in the corner and say, well, we did our job. Like you didn't, because one way or the other, our growth organization, which is sales, marketing, channels, everything to get everything put together, didn't deliver to the business the revenue that was needed, or the growth that was needed.
Yeah.
And as an executive, you are absolutely responsible for the outcome of that. And that's the conversation I would have. And then we would go about discussing what those shared goals were going to be, and then how they could influence them. I mean, what it did do is it forced my marketing leader to be sitting daily with my sales leader, um, to discuss what they're seeing and how this is going. And it wasn't just, hey, we're throwing things over the wall. That led to BDRs getting reassigned from sales leadership to marketing leadership. We
Mm.
realized that at that time, um, the speed of follow-up and the type of follow-up that we wanted, it in the leads that we were creating, meant that the BDRs really shouldn't be serving the outside sales team. They should be working hand in hand, really very closely together with the marketing team. And so it made sense to move them under marketing. And the sales leader was great with that, because that meant that what they were getting was when the handoff would happen, it would be a much more thorough, qualified pipeline than was happening previously, and they could focus on just crushing pipeline. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, that has worked. It's just an example. It probably doesn't. There are probably cases where it doesn't always work, but yeah, I'm for it generally.
Yeah, absolutely. It's aligning them around one particular goal, right? I've got another question for you, because in our last couple of episodes, we were talking a bit around, CMOs in their first board meeting, alignment with, CEO, the board, around metrics and understanding. How
Yep.
much do the business leaders, do the board, do private equity investors care about attribution?
I don't think they do. They might claim that they do, or they might have read an article and therefore they think they're experts. But what they really want to know is what volume of legitimate pipeline was created based on my marketing spend, and if I increase it, do I get a linear or better return, growth of that marketing spend, and how much more than linear, um, and and then they want to understand sales efficiency, right? So it still shocks me when companies hire sales before they build pipeline, and then they expect, in this world, like I'm talking specifically B2B software, B2B hardware, B2B, like tech and tech enabled services. I'm not talking about, like, there are businesses, the brokerage business, trucking brokerage in the States, for example, is an example where you do hire tremendous numbers of outbound, like
Mhm.
cold calling, cold emailing. Just it's a there are other ways to do it too, but that tends to still be an effective growth strategy. Um, but in um, but in most worlds, like complex solution selling type environments, um, the the idea that you would hire a sales team before you have demand, before you have pipeline created, is like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But people still do it. So, like, to me, as an executive or as an investor, I want to know what's your how much pipeline is each salesperson managing? How much can they manage before they're just overwhelmed, right? and what's the ideal close, number of accounts that each salesperson should be managing, or number of opportunities. And then when does demand, when will demand overtake the volume of sales teams you have, so that we can then be hiring ahead of that and training, so that we can catch those opportunities and continue to convert, without causing our sales team to run out the door because we're just browbeating them. Um, uh, but there's no question in my mind that that if I really want to build a go-to-market efficiently, I don't just hire salespeople and tell them to cold call. Or use their network, which is another one of those 1985 thought processes. Um, the what I want to know is okay, I'm going to give demand. By the way, I think we should start calling chief marketing officers chief demand officers. I think that would change the world, in terms of like how they think about themselves and what their objective is. But okay, so doesn't help, or it doesn't hurt that we're called Demand Decoded in this podcast, right? Like,
No, I like it.
uh,
I'm here for it.
but so our chief demand officer then is ultimately responsible for generating as much pipeline with as few resources as possible. And so they want to know all of that, and they want to be as sophisticated as possible. But what when they report to the board, they want one metric, right? An efficiency score with, and maybe two metrics: an efficiency score and a close rate score, right? Here's the quality of the pipeline just demonstrated by our close rates. And if we can increase efficiency and increase close rates, in our and see total demand increasing, every investor in the world is going to be thrilled and going to be wanting to give them more money, right? Let's keep going. Let's do more. Yeah. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, and there's a reason why I asked you that question, because I knew you'd give me that answer. Like the board don't care about your channel attribution. They don't even care about your signal attribution. Like you say, they want one number. We put money in, how much money do we get out? Like basically, what is the ROI of your marketing and go-to-market investments overall? And in marketing, yes, of course, you need to break that down and understand where are you most efficient at generating that revenue? Which channel is it? Which signal is generating the best returns? But at the end of the day, you're only reporting to the people who are ultimately investing in the business that one figure. So if you need to invest in areas where you don't have the clearest sight of channel ROI, if your multi-touch attribution can't detect that thing, well, that doesn't matter to the board. Okay, it might matter to where you can deploy that budget, but if you can then start using things like incrementality lift tests and things like that, we invest here, we did this activity, we saw a lift in pipeline and revenue, and you can tie it that way. You don't actually need to do the granular channel level attribution that people rave about needing, mainly technology vendors rave about you needing. It's not actually necessary in order to get the result at the end. There are other ways to think about it, and as long as you can report on that main number at the end, which is like you say, ROI, efficiency, then you're okay.
Yeah, I think that the other person in the room that, outside the board, that you may have to go into more detail on with is the CFO, in the annual budget cycle, or the quarterly budget cycle, depending on what kind of company you're in. Asking for, when you want to go ask for money, you're going to have to demonstrate that you understand how to be a good steward of that money. That's legitimate. But I think that's where you can educate the CFO too. Like, historically, that CFO might have gotten used to people using first touch attribution to justify, and then cognitively realize, wait a minute, they're telling me that this is all great, but I'm not seeing revenue increases over here.
Yeah.
So whatever they're telling me doesn't like, I become skeptical. So when they ask for money, I'm like, maybe I'll just reduce that by some to make my numbers work on the other side. The That's why I mean, I'll come back to getting everything into one system, getting and then using AI to analyze the details of of every touch and every sales engagement, and be able to really try to create a more transparent view of that buyer, a more thorough and transparent view of that buyer may help us to connect the dots with the CFO, the CEO, and it's no longer a political thing because you've got sales and marketing data together, and you can show and you can show like that's what like if you oh gosh, who are the guys the first guys that were doing call recording and like deep analysis of call recording.
Maybe
I've looked at
Gong.
Gong, yeah.
Yeah.
So Gong's been doing this for a long time. But the last couple of years, they've gotten really, really deep in the psychological analysis of what they're hearing, the intonality, the engagement level, the eye contact, all this stuff uh, and they're using that to coach reps. Um, that level of analysis and data, but across every single touch point of uh, of the where the buyer connects to you in any way, listens to a podcast, downloads a white paper, whatever. I think is where this gets really interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. Like there will be a point in time in a not too distant future where you are feeding in all of your channel data, all of your go to market data, your marketing attribution, sales attribution, signal data into one large language model, and that's going to aggregate the data. It's going to pull out the things that truly matter to you in a view that makes sense to the board, to the people that need to see it. And that's all going to be aggregated for you in one single place. And it's terrifying to think about, but absolutely amazing to think about what is going to happen there.
Yeah, so I didn't prep you for this, and because it just crossed my mind. But if we have people listening to this who want to go down that journey with us, reach out to us. We will give you the deal of a lifetime to be able to get access to, if you have enough data, to be able to do this in the real world outside of just our own data, and be able to partner with you to build this analysis to help you really get visibility into how your company grows or how your buyers buy. Um, we're your buddy. Come and reach out, and we will bring the resources. We will work with you to get the data, and yeah, this is such an exciting place for me personally because like we use the term growth engineering, and Blend wants to be the premier growth engineering uh, firm in the world.
Mm.
This is how you engineer growth in the world of AI and in the world of the modern buyer journey. You really have to get your hands on all the data and be able to analyze it in depth, and detect these patterns and anomalies, and let that drive your behavior. And so yeah, so for any customer that's interested in going down that journey, I would love to talk with them about how we can do that and partner with them.
Yeah, good shout, Josh, because sometimes just being able to work with an external consultant in order to aggregate that data in ways that you might not have thought before would be really interesting. And I think for us, being able to, like you say, have that volume of data to look at, to understand, to kind of shape what that looks like with another business will be valuable to everybody. And of course, we'll share those learnings along the way on the podcast.
Exactly right.
Try and help more people. How we kind of enter this next phase of business and growth engineering. Let's get back onto attribution. And
Sorry.
because what a tangent, but a good one, I think. Because AI literally creeps into every single podcast now. But there's no escaping it, and that's just the way of the world, right? But I think we can probably start to wrap this episode up now, from an attribution standpoint, but just circle back to that point. I think from my perspective, we've mentioned this a few times, the attribution war between marketing and sales can be largely ended by reframing the single goal, by reframing the compensation that they get out the back of those goals, and by aligning the systems, which is still a humongous gap for so many businesses. If you're a marketing team, if you're a marketing leader listening to this, and you have no visibility of pipeline and revenue, you need to be taking that to the CEO, to whoever right now after this episode, because there is no way that you can efficiently spend your budget, efficiently deploy your team and your resource in the best way possible to get the best result. It's just simply not possible. But when it comes to attribution, we've kind of mentioned a few things on this. Self-reported attribution will be a really great, easy way to identify some of the channels that you might not be able to see in traditional software attribution that are working hard for you. Aside from that, looking at signal-based attribution will be another good way to evaluate the entire go-to-market engine. You can supplement this with some technology attribution too, but aside from that, those are the things that are probably going to help you out most.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, Dan. I mean, I think the last thing I want to say is there's no silver bullet to growth, particularly in B2B tech, right? You can't, if you're using attribution to say this is the thing, this is the marketing channel that's going to, enable our growth, and it's the one I'm going to pour all my money into. That's going to fail, because there is not, or it's not going to, at least it's not going to be as optimized as it could be, because buyers connect to us in so many different ways, and they want to connect to us in so many different ways. And so, just be careful how much you're paying attention to individual attribution points and trying to create ROI cases for one thing, as opposed to really building a portfolio approach to how your go-to-market overall, and looking at the connective tissue between those portfolio items. I think being able to, that's the whole point of this AI discussion, is really to understand the connective tissue and what succeeds most often when this touch point goes to this touch point, and in what timing, right? To be able to understand where you can now, spend more, optimize, what have you. So, yeah, I would not get into a conversation anymore with anyone trying to have a religious view of first touch or last touch, or they're all just, up there.
Yeah, they're all just noise, and they all have their issues, right? Which is why we advocate for like a hybrid approach that takes into account multiple things. All right, cool. Well, let's wrap it up there. Unless there's anything else from you, Josh.
I don't think so. Maybe just the one thing you can do if you're a HubSpot customer is pay attention to the attribution reporting in HubSpot. It will automate some things for you. If that's all the appetite you have, then that's better than nothing. But let's use those to start, and then let's get your data, and let's really build something out, help you understand your growth.
Yeah, and I would just say self-reported attribution again on top of that, because it's a really important thing to supplement that data with. All right, let's leave it there. That was a really interesting episode. We went down a few rabbit holes. Hopefully we weren't too boring for everyone with those things. But yeah, I liked the fact we did that on the last episode as well. They've gone down pretty well. So I think, when that thought comes, sometimes you just need to lean into it, right? You just need to kind of go down a rabbit hole.
it entertains us if nobody else, right? So
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for listening to that waffle of a Demand Decoded episode. It was really fun. And yeah, we'll catch you next time. If you could drop us a like rating, drop us a follow on whatever platform you listen to, that'd be totally awesome. But until then, yeah, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.